Mara loved the quiet of the forest. She had grown up near it and knew almost every tree, rock, and stream. The forest felt like a friend who never judged or hurried her. Every weekend, she carried her backpack, a small lunch, and a notebook to record anything she found. She liked drawing birds, watching insects, and sometimes imagining what might have been lost or hidden there long ago. Today she felt a strange excitement. The air smelled fresh with morning dew, and the sun filtered through the leaves in golden patterns. She decided to explore a part of the forest she had never visited before. The deeper she went, the taller and older the trees became. Their thick branches created shadows that danced as the wind moved. Birds chirped high above, and the sound of a distant stream reached her ears. Mara loved walking in this part of the forest because it felt like stepping back in time. There were no paths worn by people. Only animals had passed here regularly, leaving faint tracks that Mara sometimes tried to follow. As she moved through the trees, she noticed a shape far ahead. At first she thought it was a large rock, but as she got closer, she realized it was something unusual, something man-made. Her curiosity grew. Mara carefully stepped over roots and bushes until she could see it clearly. It was a truck. A military truck. Its green paint had faded to a dull gray, and rust covered much of its metal frame. Vines had grown through the broken windows and around the tires. The tires were flat, and one of the doors hung open, swinging slightly in the breeze. The truck looked abandoned, forgotten by time and people. Mara felt a shiver of excitement mixed with sadness. Who had left it here? Why had it been abandoned in the forest, instead of being taken to a city or junkyard? She circled the truck slowly, examining every detail. The front grille was bent, and the headlights were cracked. On the side, there were faded letters, barely readable. She squinted and thought she could make out the word rescue. There were scratches and dents that told stories of heavy use, of hard roads traveled, and perhaps of danger faced. Mara's heart beat faster. She loved history, especially when it was hidden in plain sight. Mara touched the metal carefully. It was cold and rough under her fingers. She imagined soldiers or rescuers who might have driven this truck. People who had worked together, faced challenges, and trusted this vehicle to get them through difficult situations. She could almost hear the engine roar, the wheels crunching over dirt and rocks, and the voices of the people who had depended on it. For a long time, Mara just stood there. She felt like she had discovered something important, something that belonged not just to the forest, but to the stories of people who had lived and worked long before she was born. She wanted to take the truck home, but the idea seemed impossible. It was huge, heavy, and clearly broken. How could one person move it? Still, she did not give up on the thought. She promised herself she would find a way. She sat on a fallen tree nearby and ate her sandwich, thinking about the truck. Every bite tasted less like food and more like an idea forming in her mind. She would restore it. She would clean it, fix it, and bring it back to life. She did not know how yet, but she knew it could be done. She had fixed old bicycles, small engines, and even a broken radio. This was bigger, yes, but Mara had never backed down from a challenge before. The sun climbed higher, and the forest felt warmer. Mara walked around the truck again, looking for anything she could use. She found an old toolbox under the driver's seat, nearly buried in leaves. It was rusty and missing some tools, but the rest of the tools were intact. She carefully packed them in her backpack. They might help her start restoring the truck, or at least give her a clue about its past. She noticed something inside the truck. A small notebook, leather-bound and worn. The cover was torn, and the pages were yellowed. Mara opened it carefully. The writing inside was faint, but she could read it. It was full of notes, names, dates, and short messages. Mara realized it must have belonged to the person who had driven or maintained the truck. Some notes described places visited, sometimes far away, sometimes nearby. Some pages had sketches of towns, bridges, and roads. Mara felt a deep connection to the writer. This was someone who had cared for this truck, someone who had depended on it to carry out important work. The more Mara read, the more she understood the truck was not just a machine. It was a companion, a partner in challenges and adventures. It had been trusted by people who relied on it to carry supplies, save lives, or travel through difficult terrain. Mara felt a sense of responsibility. She would not just restore the truck for herself. She would restore it to honor its history, to respect the people who had used it, and to bring their stories back to life. By the time she decided to leave the forest for the day, Mara had made a plan. She would return with tools, materials, and help if she could find it. She would start slowly, piece by piece, cleaning the rust, repairing what she could, and learning about the truck's engine and parts. She knew it would take time, but she felt ready. Her excitement had grown into determination. On the way back home, Mara could not stop thinking about the truck. She imagined it shining again, with its green paint restored, its tires full of air, and its engine roaring. She imagined taking it out on a long drive through the countryside, feeling the power of the vehicle beneath her hands. She imagined the stories she could tell people about it, the history she could uncover. That evening, Mara made a small notebook entry of her own. She wrote about the truck, how she found it, and how she wanted to restore it. She drew sketches of its shape, the scratches, the vines, and the toolbox. She also wrote a promise to herself. She would bring it back to life, no matter how long it took. Over the next few days, Mara returned to the forest several times. She cleared some of the vines, cleaned the windows as best as she could, and examined the engine. She took notes, measured parts, and researched online about similar trucks. She learned about the engine type, the fuel it used, and how the wheels were built. Every discovery made her more confident. Every challenge made her more determined. One afternoon, while she was working near the truck, an old neighbor came by. His name was Mr. Harold. He had once been a mechanic in the village. Mara showed him the truck and explained her plan to restore it. Mr. Harold's eyes widened. He had seen similar trucks in the past, and he knew they were not easy to repair. But he also saw the spark in Mara's eyes. He agreed to help her. Together, they would figure out how to move the truck to a safer place, how to clean it properly, how to start restoring it step by step. The idea of working with someone experienced made Mara even more excited. She realized that restoring the truck would not just be about fixing metal and engines. It would be about learning from others, sharing stories, and honoring the history that had been left in the forest. She felt proud and grateful. As the sun set, Mara looked at the truck one last time that day. The shadows of the trees stretched across its body, and the fading light made the rust glow in orange and red. Mara imagined it shining again, ready to move, ready to tell its story. She felt a sense of peace. The truck was waiting just as she was waiting. Together, they would become part of something bigger than just the forest or a village. They would bring back history, honor, and the strength of people who had relied on machines and courage alike. Mara walked home slowly, her heart full of hope and ideas. She knew the path ahead would be difficult. She knew it would take weeks or months of hard work, but she did not feel afraid. She felt alive, connected, and ready. The truck was not just a discovery. It was the beginning of an adventure, one that would teach her about history, courage, and the human spirit. That night, she dreamed of the truck. In her dreams, it moved easily through the forest, its engine roaring, carrying supplies, people, and stories. She saw soldiers and rescuers smiling as they rode with it, trusting it to take them safely to their destinations. Mara woke up with a smile, ready for the work that awaited her. She knew that this was only the beginning, and that every day would bring new challenges, discoveries, and moments of joy. And so, Mara's journey with the abandoned military truck began. A journey of restoration, history, and heart. A journey that would not only bring a machine back to life, but also touch lives in ways she could not yet imagine. Mara woke up early the next morning. The sunlight had barely touched the village, and the air smelled fresh and clean. Today was the first day she would start restoring the truck. She packed her backpack with gloves, small tools, rags, and some water. Her notebook, filled with sketches and measurements from her previous trips, was tucked carefully inside. Mara felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She knew this task was big, but the thought of bringing the truck back to life made her heart beat faster. When she arrived at the forest, The truck looked the same as the day before, but somehow it seemed to recognize her. The rusted metal glimmered slightly in the morning sun. Mara smiled and whispered, "Good morning." The forest was quiet, almost as if it was waiting for her to begin. She took a deep breath and started with the simplest task. She picked up a small broom from her backpack and brushed away leaves, dirt and debris from the tires and the floor of the truck. Every brushstroke revealed more of the original green paint beneath the layers of rust and grime. After cleaning the surface, Mara moved to the doors. She tried to lift the heavy driver's side door, but it was stuck. She pulled and pushed carefully, listening to the creaks and groans of the metal. Slowly, with patient effort, the door opened wide enough for her to sit inside. She dusted off the seat, removed the vines, and checked the pedals. They were stiff but intact. Mara smiled. It was a start. Mara remembered the notebook she had found inside the truck. She took it out and flipped through the pages. There were sketches of engine parts, notes about oil and fuel, and instructions written in careful handwriting. She tried to understand the diagrams, comparing them to the truck's engine. She had learned a little about engines before, but this was her first time working with one this large. She took her notebook and copied the diagrams as best as she could. Writing it down helped her remember the steps and gave her a sense of direction. By late morning, Mara realized she needed help. The truck was too heavy to move alone, and some of the parts were rusted and stuck. She remembered Mr. Harold, the old neighbor who had been a mechanic. She ran back to the village and found him in his small workshop. His hands were oily, and his face was lined with years of experience. Mara explained the truck and her plan. She showed him her notes and the sketches from the notebook she had found inside the truck. Mr. Harold listened carefully. He smiled and nodded. He agreed to help her. He said, "We can start by cleaning the engine and removing rust. Then we can see which parts need to be repaired or replaced." Mara felt relief and excitement at the same time. With Mr. Harold's guidance, she knew she could do more than she could alone. The next day, they returned to the forest together. Mr. Harold carried a toolbox full of new tools and supplies. Mara had brought rags, brushes, and oil. They began with the tires. Each tire was covered in mud and plant growth. With careful scraping and brushing, it cleared the dirt and vines. Mr. Harold explained how tires could be repaired or replaced and showed Mara how to check for cracks and weak spots. She listened carefully and tried to remember everything. Next, they moved to the engine. It was large and complicated, with many pipes, wires, and bolts. Mara felt nervous at first, but Mr. Harold encouraged her. He explained each part slowly. "This pipe carries fuel," he said. "That wire connects to the starter," he added. Mara touched the metal carefully, asking questions when she did not understand. Mr. Harold answered patiently. Pressed by her curiosity and careful approach, they worked slowly, part by part. Mara cleaned the engine with rags and oil. She removed rusted bolts and replaced them with new ones. Mr. Harold showed her how to test each component. Mara learned how the engine worked, how fuel and air mixed, how the spark made the engine run. She realized that the truck was like a living thing. Every part had a role, and if even one part failed, the whole system would not work. She felt proud to be learning and contributing. During the work, Mara discovered more items inside the truck. She found a small metal box with old tools, a faded flag rolled up carefully, and even a pair of gloves that seemed to belong to the original driver. She cleaned each item and placed it carefully on the back of the truck. It felt like she was uncovering a small treasure chest of history. Mr. Harold smiled when he saw her careful attention to every detail. He said, "You are doing more than restoring a truck. You are respecting its past." Mara nodded, feeling a deep sense of purpose. The days turned into weeks. Mara and Mr. Harold returned to the forest every morning. They worked in the sun, in the rain, and sometimes when the wind was cold. Each day brought small victories: a clean tire, a polished engine part, a repaired door hinge. Mara learned patience. She learned that restoration was not about rushing, but about careful attention. She learned that every scratch and dent had a story. Respecting those stories made the work more meaningful. One afternoon, Mara discovered the truck's headlights. They were cracked and dull. She cleaned the glass and polished it as much as she could. She also replaced the bulbs, testing them carefully. When she flipped the switch, a faint light glowed. It was not perfect, but it worked. Mara felt a rush of joy. She ran her hand over the metal and whispered, "We are getting there," Mr. Harold chuckled, saying, "You will have it shining before the month ends if we keep this pace." Mara smiled. She hoped he was right, but she knew the journey was about more than just the end result. Mara also learned about the paint. The original green had faded, but traces of it remained. Mr. Harold explained that repainting was delicate work. If done too quickly, it could cover the original markings that told the truck's story. Mara wanted to preserve those markings. She carefully cleaned the surface and applied a protective layer of oil to prevent further rust. She felt proud of her careful approach. She wanted the truck to shine again, but also to keep its history visible. The engine began to show signs of life. After careful cleaning, oiling, and testing, Mara turned the key one morning. The engine sputtered, coughed, and then roared softly. It was not perfect, but it was alive. Mara jumped with joy. She hugged Mr. Harold, who laughed heartily. He said, "You did it. You made it work." Mara felt tears of happiness in her eyes. She had started with a rusty, abandoned truck and had brought it back to life, at least partially. It was a small victory, but it meant everything to her. Mara also felt a growing connection to the truck's past. She imagined the soldiers or rescuers who had relied on it. She imagined the long roads, the challenges, the courage it had carried. Each bolt she tightened, each part she polished, felt like a small act of honor. She realized that restoring the truck was not just about fixing metal and engines. It was about remembering the people who had trusted it, who had depended on it, and who had worked hard to achieve their missions. One day, while cleaning the cabin, Mara found another notebook. It was smaller than the first and had sketches of places, names, and short messages. Mara read it carefully. The notebook described missions and travels, sometimes dangerous, sometimes peaceful. It mentioned people who had worked together, helped each other, and relied on the truck to keep them safe. Mara felt a deep sense of respect and responsibility. She wanted to restore the truck not only for herself, but also for the people who had once depended on it. Weeks passed, and the truck slowly transformed. Its tires were repaired, its engine cleaned and polished, its doors repaired, and the interior cleaned. The sunlight reflected faintly off the metal, showing glimpses of the original green paint. Mara was careful not to rush. Each day, she checked the engine, cleaned the surfaces, and documented her progress in her notebook. She felt proud of her work. She was learning patience, skill, and respect for history. The forest seemed to respond to their work. Birds returned to the trees near the truck. Squirrels watched curiously. The breeze felt gentle, as if approving their effort. Mara sometimes imagined the truck smiling, happy to be alive again. She laughed quietly at her imagination, but the feeling of connection was real. It was not just a machine. It was a story, a companion, and a symbol of human effort and care. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky orange, Mara and Mr. Harold sat beside the truck. They looked at the work they had done. The engine was almost fully repaired, the tires solid, the doors functioning, and the headlights shining dimly. Mara felt a mixture of satisfaction and anticipation. Soon, the truck would move again. Soon, it would be alive and ready to carry stories forward. Mara made a final note in her notebook for the day. She wrote about the engine, the tires, the headlights, and the items found inside. She sketched the repaired parts and noted the tasks remaining. She also wrote about her feelings. She felt proud, happy, and connected to the past. The truck had become more than metal. It had become a bridge between generations, a reminder of courage, effort, and human skill. As night fell, Mara looked at the stars above the forest. She thought about the adventures that awaited the truck. She imagined taking it on a long drive, carrying supplies, or maybe helping people in need. She imagined the stories she would learn, the people she would meet, and the history she would uncover. Mara felt ready for the next stage of her journey. Restoring the truck had taught her many things. She had learned about engines, history, patience, and respect. Mara arrived at the forest early that morning, carrying her backpack filled with tools, rags, and a small lunch. The sun was just rising, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Birds sang softly in the trees, and a cool breeze moved through the leaves. She felt a quiet excitement. Today, she thought, she would take the truck one step closer to being fully alive. She smiled as she walked, imagining the engine roaring and the tires rolling on the old forest paths as Mara approached the truck. She noticed something unusual. A shadow moved near the trees at the edge of the clearing. At first, she thought it was a deer, but the shape was different. A man stepped out from behind a tree. He was older, with silver hair and a kind face, dressed in simple clothes. Mara froze for a moment, unsure whether to be nervous. The man raised his hand slightly, showing he meant no harm. "Hello," he said softly. "I hope I am not disturbing you." Mara relaxed a little. "No," she replied. "I am just working on this truck." The man walked closer, his eyes fixed on the vehicle. He stopped a few feet away and let out a long breath. "I remember this truck," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "I never thought I would see it again." Mara tilted her head, curious. "You know this truck?" she asked. The man nodded slowly. "Yes, I used to drive it a long time ago. My name is Tom." Mara felt a shiver of surprise. She had never met anyone who had worked with this truck. She had discovered it abandoned in the forest, hidden for years, and now someone who had known it well had appeared. "I am Mara," she said. "I am restoring it." Tom's eyes widened. He walked closer to the truck, touching the metal carefully, as if afraid it would disappear if he did not hold it. "You are restoring it?" he asked, his voice filled with wonder. "You do not know what this truck means to me." Mara stepped closer. "I found it here," she explained. "I want to bring it back to life. I want to learn its story." Tom's eyes shone with tears, but he blinked them back. This truck carried more than supplies. It carried people. It carried hope. "I never thought it would be seen again. And now you are giving it life again." Mara felt a warmth in her chest. She had not realized her work could touch someone else so deeply. "Would you like to help me?" she asked. "I do not know all of its history. You might know more." Tom nodded slowly. "I would like that very much." Together, they approached the truck. Tom moved with care, as if every step could disturb memories. He opened the driver's side door, resting his hand on the worn seat. Mara watched him quietly. She noticed how he studied every detail, the scratches, the faded paint, the dents and rust. His eyes softened, and Mara realized this was not just a truck to him. It was a connection to a part of his life he had cherished. Tom began to tell stories. He spoke of long journeys over rough roads, through forests, hills, and deserts. He told Mara about missions where the truck had carried people and supplies, saving lives in dangerous situations. Mara listened, fascinated. She could see the pride and respect in his eyes. The truck had been more than a machine. It had been a trusted companion. He showed her places inside the truck that had special meanings. One small dent on the door, he explained, had saved someone from falling debris. A scratch on the side panel had come from a tree branch that blocked the road. Mara listened carefully, imagining every scene he described. The truck became alive in her mind, carrying stories of courage, teamwork, and trust. Mara asked questions, curious about every detail. Tom answered with patience. He explained how he and others had maintained the truck, how they had repaired it in the field with limited tools, and how they had relied on it when roads were blocked or supplies were scarce. Mara realized that the truck was a symbol of human determination. Even in difficult times, people had found a way to overcome challenges with skill, courage, and cooperation. After a while, Mara suggested they start working together. Tom agreed. He said he could help her understand the engine and other parts better. Mara felt relieved. With his experience, they could do more than she had imagined. They spent the rest of the morning cleaning the interior. Mara showed Tom the notebook she had found. He recognized the handwriting immediately. "This was my friend's notebook," he said softly. He worked with me on many missions. Seeing it again brings back so many memories. They moved to the engine next. Tom explained each part carefully, showing Mara how fuel moved, how air and spark made the engine run, and how the tires and wheels worked together. Mara listened and practiced carefully. She tightened bolts, cleaned parts, and applied oil under Tom's guidance. Every small success brought smiles and laughter. Mara felt proud to learn and work alongside someone who had lived the truck's history. While working, they discovered more items inside the truck. A small first aid kit, some old maps, and a pair of gloves were hidden under the seats. Tom's eyes softened as he picked them up. "I remember using these," he said. "They were always with us, just in case." Mara cleaned the items carefully, placing them back in the truck. She felt a deep respect for the people who had relied on this vehicle. As the day passed, Mara noticed that the truck seemed to respond to their work. The engine made soft noises as they cleaned it. The tires looked stronger. The doors opened and closed more smoothly. Mara felt a sense of connection. This was not just restoration of metal and machinery. It was a revival of history, memory, and human spirit. Tom shared more stories during breaks. He told Mara about the teamwork, the courage, and the small victories that had made life meaningful during challenging times. Mara realized that the truck carried more than weight and supplies. It carried lessons about resilience, kindness, and responsibility. She felt honored to be part of this continuation of history. By late afternoon, they had cleaned much of the truck and repaired small parts of the engine. The truck already looked stronger, more alive. Mara suggested testing some of the moving parts carefully. Tom agreed, and they checked the steering, the brakes, and the pedals. Every small success was celebrated quietly, with smiles and claps on the back. Mara felt a thrill in her heart. The truck was coming back to life, step by step. During a short break, Tom shared his own life story. He spoke about serving his country, the friends he had made, and the lessons he had learned. Mara listened with fascination. She realized that the truck was not just a machine in history books. It was a living witness to courage, loyalty, and human effort. She felt grateful for the opportunity to learn from Tom and to restore a vehicle that had carried so much meaning. The sun began to set, casting long shadows over the forest. Mara and Tom cleaned the last tools and organized the items inside the truck. They stepped back and looked at it together. Even though it was not fully restored, the truck looked alive. The green paint glimmered faintly, the engine parts were clean and oiled, and the tires were ready. Mara felt a sense of pride and hope. Tom's eyes were filled with emotion. "You have done something remarkable," Tom said softly. "You have given this truck a second life. You have honored its history and the people who relied on it. Seeing it like this brings me more happiness than I can explain." Mara smiled. She felt a warm glow in her chest. She had started with curiosity and determination, and now she had helped revive a symbol of courage and memory. Before leaving, Mara made a note in her notebook. She wrote about the work done, the lessons learned from Tom, and the stories shared. She drew sketches of the repaired parts and the items found inside. She also wrote about her feelings of connection, respect, and pride. The notebook had become a record not only of restoration, but also of the human spirit she was witnessing. As night fell, Mara walked back to the village, carrying her backpack and thoughts full of excitement. She realized that restoring the truck was no longer just her personal project. It had become a shared journey with Tom, a bridge between past and present. She felt a deep responsibility to continue to learn and to honor the stories carried by the truck. That night, Mara dreamed of the truck moving through the forest, carrying supplies and people. She saw herself and Tom working together, listening to the engine, learning from each other, respecting the history it held. She felt a sense of peace and purpose. The journey was not complete, but she knew it would be meaningful and rewarding. Mara had discovered something more than a truck in the forest. She had discovered courage, connection, and the importance of remembering history. With Tom's help, she was learning that restoration was about more than metal and engines. It was about honor, respect, and human spirit. And so, Mara's journey continued. now with a new companion. Step by step, story by story, she and Tom were bringing the truck back to life, preparing it for a day when it would move, when it would roar, and when its story would touch hearts once again. Mara woke early that morning, her excitement stronger than usual. The sky was painted in soft shades of pink and orange, and the forest was quiet except for the sound of birds singing. Today would be special. She and Tom were finally going to take the truck on a short drive. After weeks of cleaning, repairing, and testing, the truck was ready to move again. Mara's heart raced as she packed her small bag with tools, water, and a notebook. She could hardly wait to see the truck in motion. When Mara arrived at the forest clearing, the truck was waiting. The sunlight reflected faintly off its green paint. The tires firm and strong, the engine humming quietly as if it had been waiting for this moment. Mara ran her hand over the hood, feeling a sense of pride and wonder. Tom was already there, standing beside the driver's door, smiling. He looked different somehow, lighter, happier. Mara realized the truck had brought joy to them both in its restoration. "Are you ready?" Mara asked, trying to keep her voice steady despite her excitement. Tom nodded. "I have been waiting for this day for a long time. Let's take it slowly and carefully." Mara climbed into the passenger seat, while Tom took the driver's seat. He adjusted the mirrors, tested the pedals, and smiled at Mara. "Here we go," he said softly. Mara felt a thrill as Tom turned the key. The engine roared to life smoothly, stronger than she had imagined. The sound was powerful, yet controlled, like a living creature awakening from a long sleep. They began moving slowly along the old forest path. Mara felt the vibrations through the seat and the steering wheel. The tires crunched over the dirt and leaves, carrying them forward. The forest seemed to respond to the truck's motion. Birds flew up from the trees, squirrels paused to watch, and the wind rustled the leaves as if cheering them on. Mara could hardly believe this moment had come. As they drove, Tom began to speak. He shared stories of the truck's past journeys. He told Mara about missions where it had carried people through storms, rough roads, and difficult terrain. He spoke of times when the truck had been their only hope, carrying supplies to those in need. Mara listened, amazed. Every story made her respect the truck more. It had been a lifeline, a symbol of hope, a companion to those who had depended on it. Mara looked around the forest as they drove. The sun had risen higher, casting soft golden light on the path. She noticed details she had never seen before: the patterns of tree bark, the shapes of the rocks, and the streams reflecting the sky. The truck moved steadily, as if it knew exactly where to go. Mara felt a deep connection, not just to the truck, but to the history it carried and the stories it had lived. They stopped at a small clearing by a stream. Tom turned off the engine, and silence filled the air except for the sound of flowing water. Mara climbed out and walked around the truck. She noticed how well it had moved, how strong it felt after weeks of careful restoration. She ran her hand over the tires and smiled. The truck had come alive under their hands, stronger and more capable than she had imagined. Tom joined her, placing his hand gently on the hood. "You have done more than repair it," he said. "You have given it life again, and in doing so, you have honored everyone who depended on it. Seeing it move again is more than I expected. It brings back memories I thought I had lost." Mara felt a lump in her throat. She had not thought her work would touch someone so deeply. She realized that restoration was about more than fixing metal and engines. It was about history, memory, and respect. She smiled at Tom and said, "I am glad I could help, and I am learning so much from you. This truck has more stories than I could ever imagine." After a short break, they continued driving. Tom showed Mara how to handle the truck on different surfaces. They drove over dirt paths, gentle slopes, and even a small wooden bridge. Mara felt a thrill every time the tires touched new ground. The truck moved smoothly, responding to every turn and adjustment. Mara realized that the machine they had restored was more than a vehicle. It was a symbol of human skill, effort, and perseverance. As they drove, Tom shared more stories. He spoke of the people he had met, the teamwork that had kept them safe, and the courage they had shown in difficult moments. Mara listened carefully, taking notes in her small notebook. She wanted to remember every story, every detail, so she could honor them properly. The forest seemed alive with the stories, each tree and rock a silent witness to the past. Mara also noticed how the truck inspired her. She felt a growing sense of confidence, patience, and determination. Every mile they traveled was a lesson in care, responsibility, and respect. She realized that humans could achieve great things when they worked together with skill and heart. The truck was more than metal. It was proof of human strength and perseverance. At one point, they reached a hill with a gentle slope. Tom carefully guided the truck up, showing Mara how to manage the engine, the tires, and the brakes. Mara held her breath as they reached the top. The view was breathtaking. The forest stretched endlessly, the sunlight reflecting on the leaves, the streams shining like silver ribbons. Mara felt a sense of wonder. The truck had carried them to a place where history and nature met, where stories and reality blended. They stopped at the top of the hill and turned off the engine. The silence was peaceful. Mara stepped out and walked around the truck, touching the metal and smiling. She felt proud, happy, and connected. Tom stood beside her, gazing at the forest. "It is amazing," he said softly. "I never thought I would see this truck again, moving through the forest alive. You have done something remarkable." Mara felt her heart swell. She realized that the journey was not just about the truck. It was about the connection between people, the power of effort, and the importance of remembering history. She had discovered that humans could give life to forgotten things, and in doing so, they could honor courage, resilience, and teamwork. They continued their journey down the hill, careful with every turn and step. Mara noticed how the forest changed with the light. Shadows moved slowly, birds returned to their nests, and the wind carried the scent of flowers and earth. The truck moved steadily, as if it had always belonged to this place. Mara felt a deep sense of peace. The machine and the forest, humans and history, all seemed to belong together. After several hours, they reached a clearing near the village. Mara and Tom stopped the truck and looked at each other. Both were smiling, tired but happy. The truck had moved beautifully, and the journey had been safe and full of learning. Mara realized that she had grown not just in skill, but in understanding the value of history, effort, and respect. The truck had taught her lessons she would never forget. Tom placed a hand on Mara's shoulder. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You have brought back more than a machine. You have revived memories, courage, and hope. Seeing it move again is more than I could have imagined. You have done something extraordinary." Mara felt a lump in her throat. She realized that the work was about more than restoring a truck. It was about connecting with people, history, and the human spirit. She smiled and said, "Thank you, Tom. I am glad we could do this together. I have learned so much from you and from the truck. I will continue to care for it, and I will honor the stories it carries." That evening, Mara made a notebook entry. She wrote about the journey, the forest, the hill, and the stories Tom had shared. She sketched the path they had taken, the view from the hill, and the details of the truck. She wrote about her feelings of pride, connection, and wonder. Mara realized that this journey had changed her. She had not only restored a machine, but also discovered the power of human effort, teamwork, and respect for history. As night fell, Mara and Tom walked back to the village. The forest was calm, the stars beginning to appear in the sky. Mara looked back at the clearing where the truck rested, feeling a sense of peace. She knew that the journey was not over. There were still repairs to complete, stories to uncover, and lessons to learn. But she also knew that they had reached an important milestone. The truck was alive. Its story was moving forward again. Mara dreamed that night of the truck traveling across forests, hills, and valleys. She imagined people riding it, depending on it, and finding hope in its strength. She dreamed of stories being remembered and honored, of courage being celebrated, and of the human spirit shining through. Mara knew that her journey with the truck was about more than mechanics. It was about history, memory, and inspiration. And so Mara and Tom continued their journey together, Step by step, mile by mile, story by story, they brought the truck back to life. They moved forward with care, respect, and determination, knowing that the machine was not only a vehicle, but a symbol of human courage, effort, and connection. The forest, the truck, and the people who had depended on it were now linked by Mara's hands and heart. She knew that their adventure had only just begun, and that the journey ahead would teach them even more about resilience, teamwork, and the power of honoring the past. The morning sun broke gently over the village, casting golden light on the rooftops and the forest beyond. Mara stood at the edge of the clearing, looking at the truck. Its green paint gleamed faintly in the light, polished and strong. The tires were firm, the engine fully restored, and the cab clean and ready. The truck had been through a long journey with Mara and Tom, and now it looked alive, proud, and capable. Mara felt a surge of happiness. This was more than a machine. It was a symbol of effort, history, and human spirit. Tom arrived shortly after, carrying a small bag of tools and a notebook. He looked at the truck with a quiet smile, his eyes reflecting memories and pride. "It looks better than I imagined," he said. "You have done something remarkable, Mara." Mara smiled. "We did it together," she said. "I could not have done this without you." They spent the morning inspecting the truck one final time. Tom tested the engine carefully, turning the key and listening to the smooth hum. Mara checked the tires, the doors, and the cab. Everything was in perfect order. They took turns sitting inside, imagining the truck traveling again across forests, roads, and fields, carrying supplies, people, and stories. It was a proud moment for both of them, but also a quiet one. It's filled with respect for what the truck represented. As they worked, people from the village began to gather. Some had heard stories of the abandoned truck and Mara's restoration project. Children ran excitedly, pointing at the tires and the engine. Adults watched with curiosity and admiration, asking Mara questions about the process. Mara felt proud to share what she had learned. She explained the steps of cleaning, repairing, and restoring the truck. She showed them the notebook she had found inside, and the sketches she had made. Tom joined her, sharing the truck's history. He told the villagers about the missions it had carried out, the teamwork involved, and the courage of the people who had depended on it. The audience listened quietly, eyes wide with wonder. Some of the older villagers nodded knowingly, remembering times long past when trucks like this had been vital in difficult situations. Mara realized that the truck had become more than a machine to the community. It had become a symbol of human effort, determination. In history, after some discussion, Mara and Tom decided to organize a small event. They wanted to honor the truck's past and teach the younger generation about courage, teamwork, and responsibility. They asked villagers to bring stories, photographs, and artifacts if they had any. Soon, the clearing was filled with items from the past, old maps, tools, photographs of trucks in action, and letters from soldiers and rescuers. Mara helped arrange them carefully, placing each item to tell a story of human effort and history. Children were fascinated. They climbed around the truck carefully, examining the engine, the tires, and the cab. Mara showed them how each part worked and explained how people had relied on the truck during difficult times. She encouraged them to ask questions and imagine the stories behind each detail. Tom told them stories of courage and teamwork, showing how people had used skill and determination to overcome challenges. Mara watched as the children's eyes lit up. They were learning more than mechanics. They were learning respect, effort, and history. One young boy asked, "Did the truck ever save anyone?" Mara smiled at Tom, and he nodded. "Many times," he said. "It carried supplies to people in danger. It helped rescue those who were stuck. It was always dependable. And now, thanks to Mara, it will continue to remind us of courage and care." The day passed quickly. Villagers shared stories, asked questions, and explored the forest path the truck had traveled. Mara noticed how the community seemed connected by history, effort, and the truck itself. It was more than a restoration project. It was a way to honor the past and inspire the future. Mara felt proud, happy, and grateful. The work she had done with Tom had grown into something bigger, touching more lives than she had ever imagined as the sun began to set. Mara and Tom decided to take the truck for one final drive before the event ended. The engine roared smoothly as they moved along the path, carrying supplies for demonstration and small gifts for the children. Mara felt the vibration through the seat and the steering wheel, remembering every step of the restoration process. The forest seemed alive with memories, and Mara imagined the people who had once traveled these paths in the truck. They stopped at the small hill they had visited before. The view was breathtaking, the forest stretching endlessly, golden light reflecting on leaves and streams. Mara stepped out and walked around the truck, touching the metal and smiling. She felt a deep connection to the past, the people, and the work they had done. Tom joined her, and they stood in silence for a few moments, appreciating the journey and the stories the truck carried. Tom spoke softly. "This truck is more than metal. It carries history, effort, and courage. And now you have added your own story to it. You have shown what humans can do with care, determination, and respect." Mara felt tears in her eyes. She realized that the truck had taught her more than mechanics or restoration. It had taught her patience, empathy, and the importance of honoring history. She smiled at Tom. "I feel the same way," she said. "I have learned so much from you, from the truck, and from the stories we discovered. I want to keep learning and sharing these lessons." After returning to the village clearing, Mara and Tom organized the final part of the event. They invited the villagers to write messages, draw sketches, or record memories inspired by the truck. Children wrote letters imagining adventures. Adults shared stories of the past. And some elderly villagers contributed wisdom and encouragement. Mara and Tom carefully collected all the contributions and placed them inside a small display next to the truck. The display told a story of human effort, history, and inspiration. That night, Mara and Tom sat together by the truck, watching the stars appear in the sky. The forest was quiet and peaceful, the truck resting like a guardian of stories. Mara felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The restoration had been more than mechanical work. It had been a journey of connection, learning, and respect. She realized that humans could do remarkable things when they worked together with care, curiosity, and courage. Tom spoke quietly. "Mara, you have given this truck a second life. You have honored everyone who depended on it, and you have inspired others to respect history. The work we have done will not be forgotten." Ada smiled. "And we have only just begun," she said. "There are still stories to discover, lessons to learn, and ways to inspire others." In the following weeks, the restored truck became a symbol for the village. Children visited to learn about mechanics and history. Adults shared stories of courage and teamwork. Mara and Tom organized small workshops, teaching how effort, patience, and respect could achieve remarkable results. The truck was no longer just a machine. It was a teacher, a bridge between past and present, and an inspiration for the future. Mara often thought of the first day she had discovered the abandoned truck in the forest. She remembered the rust, the vines, and the feeling of curiosity that had drawn her in. Now, seeing the truck alive, moving, and inspiring others, she realized that small acts of care and determination could grow into something extraordinary. Humans had the power to bring life back to forgotten things and honor the courage and effort of those who came before. One morning, Mara and Tom took the truck for another ride through the forest. This time, they carried supplies for the village and some of the letters and drawings from the children. Mara watched as the truck moved steadily over the dirt paths, its engine strong and reliable. She thought of all the stories it had lived and carried. The forest seemed to cheer them on, the wind rustling the leaves in a gentle melody. Mara felt joy and pride. After the ride, Mara wrote another notebook entry. She described the restoration, the event, and the reactions of the villagers. She sketched the truck shining in the sunlight and included notes from the stories shared. Mara realized that this notebook had become a record of human effort, connection, and inspiration. She felt proud that her work had not only restored a machine, but also revived history and hope. As months passed, the truck continued to serve as a symbol for the village. Mara and Tom organized small trips, teaching young people about history, mechanics, and teamwork. They showed how machines could carry stories and how humans could honor the past through effort and care. The truck became more than a project. It became a legacy. Mara felt proud to be part of this living history. Understanding that her curiosity and determination had created something meaningful for others. One evening, as the sun set over the forest, Mara and Tom stood beside the truck, looking at the sky painted in gold and orange. Mara touched the hood gently, feeling the smooth metal and remembering every bolt, every repair, and every story. She realized that humans had the power to connect past and present, to inspire courage and respect, and to honor history through careful effort. The truck was alive, carrying memories, stories. Tom looked at Mara and said, "You have done more than restore a truck. You have restored hope, history, and the spirit of people." This is a reminder that human effort, care, and determination can create lasting impact. Mara smiled, feeling warmth in her heart. "And it is a reminder for all of us," she said.